up here. Let's have a little talk here, because I've been really bad of late at filming. We've had a lot of stuff going on, a whole lot of stuff. A lot of stuff on the boat. We went through, you guys will see in a video probably before this one or maybe after, who knows, I don't know. Gina handles all that stuff, thank God. We had a pretty devastating find when I was working in the V-berth. I was just about ready to start putting walls back together and all that, and needed to dig down in the bilge for something, and noticed a dark spot on a stringer. So of course I got a light and hung upside down my big ass with my fat head down in a hole, digging around, and found a soft spot. So I was like, well, shit. So I ended up taking all the rest of the walls, the remaining walls, out of there, because of course you guys will remember the V-berth was already pretty much stripped when we got the boat, but there were still a couple walls in there and a couple doors, and so I ended up taking all the walls out. So completely stripped the V-berth forward of the salon, was stripped completely. So stripped that out, and then I pulled the sole up, and of course found a substantive amount of rot. My mast does not sit directly on the keel. It sits on an aluminum box beam. It's basically a double I-beam welded together, and then that is suspended between two main stringers, and then had two leader stringers that came out from the middle that were plated in heavily on both ends. The two middle stringers were completely gone. They were just totally rotted out, just hanging in space, not doing anything. I wanted to talk to you guys today about something that's pretty important, not just to me, but to everyone, especially in these projects. I used to counsel clients over the years, especially when we were doing extensive projects in their home, that everybody has a breaking point, and some people's comes a little quicker than others. And especially when it's a married couple, or a married couple with kids or whatever, at some point in the process of this remodel, you're going to hit a breaking point where you're tired of living in chaos. I kind of want to, I guess, maybe title this video "The Psychology of a Refit," or in that case, a remodel. But essentially, everybody's got a breaking point, and I reached mine about 4 months ago. When we purchased this boat, we did so in good faith. We had extensive meetings with the seller and the seller's agent, who has consequently become a friend of ours, and a lot of people were taking each other at their word, and ultimately that ended up screwing the selling agent and us. Ultimately, of course, I don't hold the selling agent ill in that process at all. Professionally, what he did was sound. I would have done the same thing had I been in that position. I would have done the same thing every time had I been in that position. Nevertheless, the seller was not forthright. He really, we found a lot of evidence of things that had been covered up, like paper towels shoved behind trim to hide leaks and things like that. So there were a lot of things that happened, or that were happening on that boat, that he couldn't have been anything but aware of. And what we thought was going to be about a 7 to 10 month upfit has turned into a refit that we're now into year 2 on. We're about a year and a half, I guess, into this refit, because there's not a square inch of that boat that does not require some help. Yeah, we're going to get comments. Well, didn't you get a survey? You're supposed to get a survey. Well, we had a survey. We had a survey, that not one that we had done, but one that the seller had done prior to buying the boat originally, and that survey was less than 2 years old. It was so new, in fact, that our insurance company didn't even require a redo because it was still a new enough survey that they felt confident in it. So we took that survey and took him at his word, and now we're into an expansive refit. Breaking point. We all have our breaking points. Like I said, mine happened probably about 4 months ago. I just kind of hit a wall. And it was about the time that I found that that mast step was rotted out, because if that, had I not been able to fix that in place where it's at, it would have required a substantive effort to move Olivia to a DIY yard where she could be put on the hard, the mast could be pulled, and the nearest one to us that is reasonable is 2.5 hours away by car. So probably a day trip or a 24-hour trip at minimum in the boat. And right now the engine's not running. All the engine controls have been pulled. The electrical controls have been pulled because they need to be relocated. That entire harness is hanging in a bundle in the salon, waiting for me to get to the salon to redirect and put in new gauges and switches and all that stuff. So this would have been a catastrophic moment, and it really, it knocked the wind out of me. I consider myself pretty resilient, but that one knocked me on my butt. I was in a panic because I was not sure, and I came back in my limited engineering capabilities and spent a lot of time doing rudimentary calculations and a lot of time reaching out to people who know far more than I do about a lot of things, and finally was able, after about a month of due diligence and of prospecting on the boat and trying some dry runs on some things, came up with a solution that ultimately worked. Thank God. Thank you, Jesus. But in that time, I felt the weight of the world fall down on me. We have not only a substantial investment in the boat itself and in getting her to our home port, but we have now poured a substantial amount of money into this boat in the last year and a half, or roughly a year at that point. And I was in a panic that we now had a paperweight that we weren't going to be able to move forward on, because that would just exhaust our resources to have a catastrophic failure like that. We're already, running on a razor's edge like everybody is when they're in a refit, but that just really took the air out of me. So anyway, thanks to my beautiful, loving wife, as usual, she said, well, we got to get the hell out of Dodge for a little bit. We need a break. She had been, pecking at me for, 6 or 8 months about wanting to take another cruise just to have a break. And I'm not big on taking breaks. I believe in getting on a project and driving on it until it's done. So I'll take a day here and there because my back and my pelvis are so substantially screwed up that sometimes I don't have a choice. But this stuff wears you down, and it can start to affect your relationship. It can affect your relationship not only with your spouse, but with your children and with your professional contacts and with, the public, with pretty much everybody. And it's I know better than this. I used to teach a course, actually several courses that were either designed by me wholly or were in part designed by me, and in part, I would extrapolate from FEMA courses and things like that. But that was the psychology of disaster for professional rescuers. And the biggest thing in that was know that you have limits and know your limits, and acknowledge your limits when you reach them, and do something to resolve the matter. whether that be personally do something or reach out to someone and say, hey, I'm not okay. And I did not do that. I absolutely crapped the bed and did not do that. I just did what I do, which is dig my heels in a little deeper and push a little harder. Many years ago in the fire department, my nickname was the Bull. You can take from that what you will. I earned it, believe me. But that was put your shield down, drop your helmet, and ram into whatever it was as hard as you can until it goes the way that you want it to go. Well, it's neither physically nor mentally healthy to do that. And I'm the first person to tell you that it's not, from example and from experience. And I would hammer my guys, don't do this, it's stupid, you can't, no man's an island, yada, 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 all the platitudes, all the trite cliches, all that crap. And then I'm the first one to crap the bed and not actually follow through with what I said. But it's incredibly important. Compartmentalization is not the solution. It's a tool, but it's not the solution. It's incredibly important that you aerate or ventilate your angst and anxiety and stress somewhat methodically. And I'm still not doing a great job at it. My wife, thanks to God and my wife, she will twist my arm pretty hard at times to get me to take a day off, take a break. But I'm still not great at it. And even when I'm taking that day off, a lot of times I'm reading or researching or pre-planning or whatever. So it's not really a full break, but physically it's a break. And I usually will take a nap on that day and try to recover a little bit. But I cannot stress to you enough the importance of mindful care of yourself. This process is not easy. It's not easy financially. It's not easy physically. I'm almost 53 years old, and I've put a lot of miles on this carcass. I've had a busted back and busted legs and skull fractures and concussions and dislocations, and I've I've sort of lived my life at full throttle, and I've paid for it dearly, and I'm paying for it moreover to this day. So physically, it's hard enough. This work is hard enough, and I've been doing this type of work my whole life. But it's when people joke about boat gymnastics, that's no bullshit. I go in to put a kitchen in. I'm standing on a level floor that doesn't move, hopefully, and it's mostly level. And I'm carrying cabinets in and out of rooms with door openings that are big enough to move them through, setting them on the floor, putting them on hanging cleats, putting them on the wall, that sort of thing. It's a whole muscle skill set there in itself. But when people laughingly joke about boat gymnastics, when you're 250 plus pounds and you're standing on your head with one arm and part of your face jammed into a bilge opening, trying to do something you need three hands for, it can get a little physically demanding. And I've heard boat gymnastics and boat yoga, either one of those is apt. And the funny thing is we will typically listen to the pangs of our body when a muscle's sore or we've cut ourselves or whatever. We'll deal with that. But when it comes to mental health, we ignore it. And I'm old school. I'm Gen X. We were, don't cry, don't pout, don't just keep charging forward. Well, the fact of the matter is we know better. The fact of the matter is I know better. And I still am in a constant internal battle with myself to stay on the right side of that equation, because I will run myself to a point where I throw my hands up in the air and I'm just ready to walk away, because I'm just over it. I'm still going backwards in that V-berth space, trying to get back to the moment where I discovered that rot. That's my 0 point, back to a flat floor and full mechanicals. I've now changed the black water tank, all of the black water associated plumbing. I've pulled out probably 25 pounds of wiring that went nowhere. I've had to completely rebuild the trunk for the windlass so that the windlass will quit flexing the deck. I've had to rebuild the trunk spacer. We've been working on the bow pulpit deck has been pulled off because of course we had that finish failure with Total Boat Lust, where it completely failed twice. Blisters, milky bubbles, the whole 9 yards. That's something we've talked about ad nauseum. I'm not going through that again, but all of that stuff has to be ripped back off and redone. The bow pulpit deck was a part of that, but I'm still trying to get back to zero where I can start building again, and that's where I'm at now. Is I have the floors temped back in, and I'm trying to establish all of my plumbing endpoints and my electrical endpoints so that I can pull the sole back up, run all my pipes and hoses and tubing and everything to all my endpoints, make sure that my wires are routed everywhere they need to go, and then I can seal the sole down, get that all finished up, cut my hatches back in to those spaces so I have mechanical access, and then I can start putting walls back up. Well, the anchor point for everything in that space, believe it or not, is this shower pan that I'm working on now. That is the primary fixture that everything in that space anchors off of. That establishes where my walls for the bathroom go, my L-shaped walls, where the door for that bathroom goes. It will then establish where my sink basin and my toilet base go, where my subsequent cabinetry and counters in that bathroom space go. It establishes where my open Pullman berth and slash kind of work area go and how they're set up. A settee and cabinetry, probably drawer bank, and a hanging locker go in the V-berth. Everything hinges off of, there's always what we call a ground line or an anchor line in a space, and in this one it happens to be the front wall of the head. And in order to establish that line, I had to establish that line and then establish the shower base, make sure that space worked, and then that was codified into law. That is the anchor point for the entire space. Everything hinges off this shower base. So I'm trying to get the shower base done so that it's ready to install, and then once it is and I've established exactly where the drain is sitting, then I can get the drain tubing put into place, install that shower base in its final location, and work my way out from there. So that's what I'm working on in the shop today. I would like to be on the boat, you know, putting piping in and all that stuff, but it's so important that you get these things right in their locations, because it's a bastard to move them after all these fixtures are in. So trying to do this by the numbers, but I'm frustrated because I wanted to be 4 months ahead of where I am now, and I'm trying to make up for lost time just by getting back to zero so that I can start moving forward from where I thought I was going to move forward from 4 months ago. So anyway, please take some time to address the stresses of a refit for you sailors, and remodels for you homeowners, and in your life in general. Um, you don't win any awards in life or earn any additional bonus points in heaven for doing everything at maximum stress level. And it wears you down, and I'm still pretty worn down. Gina runs around here like a hummingbird on speed and does everything in the world to try to keep me motivated and to, you know, lift my spirits when I'm frustrated, and she does a tremendous job at that. But it's not her responsibility ultimately, it's mine, and I haven't been pulling my weight in that regard. So I'm trying now we're trying to have some more evenings during the week where we just sit and play cards and drink a glass of wine, or we just take a break or enjoy some downtime rather than getting up, going straight to work, coming home, showering, throwing food in our faces, and then going straight to bed, which is basically what we had kind of devolved into for a while. But again, I can't stress enough. These stress enough in that cube. These refits are physically strenuous. They are mentally and emotionally strenuous. People who own boats, especially these big live-aboard boats, this is a labor of love. You rarely will invest an amount of money into a boat that puts you in a place of profit in the end. Ordinarily, they need far more than you can recover on the backside. So they are absolutely a labor of love. Can't tell you how many boat ads I looked at over the years that said, you know, owner just finished $1 million refit. This boat is for sale for $250,000. And I'm like, wait a minute, that math doesn't math. But it does. If you own a boat, you know that whole break out another 1,000 thing is a trite cliche, but it's the truth. But you only get one life, and you only have one body. And as someone who has lived his life in a way like he didn't expect to live through his 40s, and is now in his 50s and paying dearly for all those decisions, and for someone who has put other people's physical and mental well-being on the top of his list of priorities and then entirely neglected his own, I implore you to not do that. It's not good for you. It's not good for anybody around you. It really just creates more havoc than you could even imagine. So that's my PSA for today. I'm going to get back to working on this base and try to recover from yesterday's mistakes or miscalculations and move forward in my day so that I can get on to the next thing. This is Friday the 27th of, what month is this? June. That's how in the trenches I am with this project. I rarely know what day it is. A common conversation between Jen and I is, hey, tomorrow's Friday. I'm like, what? Okay, cool. And in my mind, I'm thinking, well, shit, I've lost 2 days this week because I thought it was Wednesday. Anyway, I'm just prattling on. I'm gonna get back on this shower base and be good to yourselves. Take some time, get some help, phone a friend. I see these ads all the time, especially on other sailing channels like Delos for online remote mental health services. There's no shame in that. I have taken advantage of mental health services myself multiple times over my life, because at some point you get to a place where you have painted yourself so deeply into a corner you don't know where to start to walk out. So it's helpful to get some other perspective. Family and friends are great for that, but if you need help, get help. But that again is my PSA for the day. I'm gonna get back on this and try to set up and film. I tried to film the layup yesterday, and the GoPro, once again, you know, shout out to GoPro for your exceptional equipment, because the friggin' camera wouldn't turn on. I had to finally, when I finished the day, took the camera inside and took the battery out of it and let it sit for 10 minutes and then put the battery back in, and finally we turned back on. I don't know why I have to do that, but here we go again. This is our second GoPro, and we had to warranty the first one, and we're well on our way to having to warranty this one. But anyway, have a good day. Take care of yourself. Kiss your loved ones. And see you back on the boat.